With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker. The future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Buttkicker, are ready to race.
We enter the month of May in the Lionheart Racing Series with tension in the air brewed from battle. Sage Karam became the first repeat winner of the season last time at Watkins Glen in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, but the three-time king Adam Blocker still sits at the top of the pile after 4 consecutive podiums to start off the season. We head then to Sparta, Kentucky, where the gladiators of the Lionheart Racing Series will attempt to tame their IndyCars in their quest to slay the king in Omaha's 200 at Kentucky. Hello and welcome back to racespottv and coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders. My name is Arjuna Kankipati and alongside is Justin Princh for today's coverage. TV cameras are provided by Istvan Ballo and TrackCams22.com with additional car cameras designed by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to timing71.org to follow along with your favorite team and drivers in the real and virtual worlds of motorsport. Let's dive straight into our pre-show presented by Buttkicker and Justin. Sage Karam did become the first repeat winner of the season last time out, but we now head back to the 1.5 milers for the first time since our season opener, where Adam Blocker took victory at the start of the season.
And that came in thrilling fashion if you think back, especially with some of the battles that went on in that race, a lot of the back and forth at Homestead Miami Speedway with the different lanes that popped up. But in the end, it was Adam Blocker who was able to utilize a bit of the clean air and his overall raw pace to break away from the rest of the pack to come away with that checker flag. But since then, it's been an interesting season so far where we've seen Sage Karam be dominant on the road courses. But so far on the ovals, we've seen various different storylines pop up. Of course, we remember the moment at Phoenix a few weeks back over on April 7th. Homestead, I think, though, maybe a hint of how some of the racing could go for tonight, where we may see several different lines pop up.
And we've got only a couple of races in May, a couple of weeks off before we head to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Circuit, where we'll head back to the road courses once more, alternating between them. Might be Karam back in HyperX victory lane there. Take a look then at our drivers' standings presented by Buttkicker. It is Blocker at the top of the heap, but Harrington has been keeping him honest here, Justin. The top two, though, have started to break away. Sage Karam, after missing out at Phoenix, back in the top 10, but lots of work to do.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of effort to close up that gap, but we know that Karam's got the raw pace. especially when it comes to these types of tracks, especially though when it comes to when he's got track position. But keeping my eye on drivers like Brian Carey and Ryan Otis for today, who have shown some great improvement the past few weeks, especially when it comes to the season in terms of the overall consistency so far. And keep in mind, Connor Harrington was one of the drivers who went back and forth with that race lead with Blocker at the last mile and a half, Arjuna.
Could he take his 5th win in Lionheart IndyCar Series competition? 3 rookies in the top 10 as well. Bennett and Brophy have been the 2 strongest of them so far, but Callisto very much a dark horse in the Sexta 5 machine. Take a look then at the team standings powered by HyperX. A private label Team Hype have started the season off very strong, Justin. All 3 of their drivers in the top 10, but Adrenaline Motorsports Red, after a bit of a quiet start to the season, they're starting to rebound, but the gap already up to almost 100 points. They need to start accumulating points very early on.
And when I was talking to Christopher about this race, he said keep an eye on the Adrenaline Motorsports machines, because these are the types of races they tend to trend towards the front as a whole. So it's going to be interesting how the red, black, and power slide units all come together to try and charge up to the standings and charge their way to the front today with how this race could go. But give a shout out to Graphics LPM so far. They've had some consistent runs so far, and I think tonight could also be a strong night for that organization for this one.
I will say as well, shout out to Blocker all by himself down in 10th. We saw him at the top of the driver's standings. At least he's still on the page in these team standings as well. Looking at the rookies and the championship powered by Buttkicker here, Justin, it's relatively close between the top 3. Rasmus and Morgan, the 2 teammates, are then only separated by 1 point. And then 6th on back, there are a number of strong names like Luis Gonzalez Nunez that have not enjoyed the first 4 races of the season. What can they do from here on out?
Well, the first things first is qualifying well, because track position is so very much critical at a track such as this for tonight. But the second thing is just try and pace yourself. Try and be patient with your moves. Be right on those moves, in that you need to make the right decisions at the right times. And in turn, you need to also try and make sure you're not overly aggressive trying to battle your way through dirty air if you're stuck in dirty air. So those are some of the things some of these rookies can do that are towards the bottom part of the top 10 for the rookie standings, like Nunez, like Fowler, who are looking for a bit of luck so far this season. But for when it comes to drivers like Henry Bennett, Jason Brophy, and Lionel Callisto, they have shown all great consistent pace throughout this season so far to be up there in the standings.
And what can they do then as we work our way into round 5 of a 22 race championship? Take a look then at the series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to also use the promo code minus273LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. Working our way towards the first Triple Crown event of this season, $8,800 in total cash and prizes on the line. And a custom fix setup, Justin, with in-car tools at a race like this where you're trying to paint the white line. It'll be interesting to see who can get on top of those and try something different through turns 1 and 2.
That's going to be very critical tonight, to be able to utilize those. The drivers I spoke with emphasize those in-car tools to be able to adjust with the different various lanes. Because while, yes, you want to stick around the bottom of the racetrack, to find clean air, you're going to potentially have to go as high as the wall to try and utilize the different lines. There is a ton of space here at Kentucky to utilize. So those in-car tools, they're going to be very busy for our drivers tonight as they try the various different lines. And keep in mind, as Andrew Kinsella told me, you can't have too much weight jacker in your car for this type of race tonight, otherwise you're going around.
Kinsella would know. He built the setup for today's activities. 8th trip to Sparta, Kentucky in 9 years of Lionheart competition then. Paul has never won, finishing at best second on just 2 occasions. And you talk about people who have come to this track and felt the frustrations that it can bring. Well, Dan Gearan, 4 straight poles, led 279 laps without taking a victory. That must be a very frustrating feeling, But then as well, Justin, this race has finished under caution 3 times. We saw that happen at Homestead, and at a race that's also seen a smallest margin of victory of 0.124 seconds. It's either going to be a strategy race where you get on fuel and get to the front of the field, or you have to make sure you're just out there when the caution flies.
And that's how some of the races have gone in Lionheart Racing Series competition this season, particularly on the Speedway side, is that strategy definitely coming into play. Keep in mind that when it comes to the battle for the lead, we may see drivers have to be very aggressive in part to be able to get the move. As the defending race winner, Chris Stouffer, put it, it can be difficult to make that pass, and he described it that way when he took that victory last season. Of course, that race ending under caution for last campaign. But overall, it's a 3-stopper you can essentially break it down to. It's the matter of how those 3 stops break down for this race, especially knowing how just a couple days ago how the Speedway Series broke down.
That was an incredible race as well. Well, the OMARS 200 at Kentucky. We are racing in memory of Sharon Shari Boggs, also known as Oma, which does mean grandma in German to her grandchildren. Born November 23rd, 1941 in Louisville, Kentucky, settled in Hackstown, New Jersey, where she unfortunately lost her long and hard-fought battle with cancer on June 28th at the ripe old age of 75. She achieved a lot, and she helped so many over the years. A teacher and volunteer of too many subjects to list, and enough to get her inducted and honored in the Hackstown Medical Center Senior Hall of Fame. Head volunteer for many programs there, helped collect 1,600 sets of pajamas and over 1,300 books for needy children. A volunteer lead for so many programs. If there was a way to help a child, she volunteered. Justin, I mean, over the last 3 years, Mark Omick has put forward the sponsorship to pay tribute to Sharon in this race. And it's so nice that we're able to do so because she meant so much to so many people.
Absolutely, especially with all the work she put in, especially on top of things, volunteering, teaching English to young children as a second language with an ESL program, as well as feeding the needy, the Head Start program. Much work was put in by Sharon over her life. And that's all one of the things that comes to important to mind is helping others. And for Miss Boggs, that was what came to be, helping others as much as possible.
A couple of weeks ago, we were paying tribute to Jason Galvin's victory at the Thumbs Up Cancer Down 200. OMARS Kentucky in loving memory 200. There's no person per se that was going to be trying to take victory in her name, but Ryan Otis will carry an onboard camera and we will follow him throughout today's race. Qualifying then has begun here from Sparta, Kentucky. Solo car qualifying, 5 minutes and 2 laps to set your fastest lap time. Provisional pole currently goes to Brian Carey in the 79. It's been an interesting start to the season for the Canadian, and now gets pipped, though, by the defending champion, Adam Blocker. Joshua Chin, provisional 3rd position, Justin. And we talked about how important qualifying is going to be. The big guns coming out swinging early.
And this is going to make things very interesting in terms of the fighting potentially early on. Keep my eye on drivers like Kinsella qualifying very well. Matt Taylor, once again, showing great qualifying speed. But for others, how about this? Henry Bennett to the top of the board with a 24.5 flat. Nailed his qualifying run, got the tires to the prime temperature in the right position to qualify well. Now Harrington's got a ton of pressure.
Well, and Bennett was extremely conservative on the first lap, building up momentum. That's what Harrington is doing as well. Across the start-finish line to complete lap number 1 is the 44 machine, and now cuts down to the inside and under the night light, paints the yellow line, trying to cut distance and minimize the time. He is the slowest car currently in qualifying. That does bode well as he works his way in towards turn 3. We take a look at the current sectors for Harrington. Out of turn 4, only 2 sectors on this track. What's it going to be, though, at the line? Cutting all the way to the apron. It is a 24.527. Puts him up into 6th position, Justin, but not good enough for pole here today.
Only good enough for row 3, and a couple other drivers, Jason Galvin, James Grahula, among the drivers, still trying to set times around this circuit. You also have Sage Karam, who's looking to rise up the board. He's had some struggles here and there in qualifying, Remember the Homestead race, he had to try and charge the field before he got in some trouble in that respective race.
At the line, 24.555, so he's going to start all the way down in 14th. Kind of epitomizes a season, Justin. He's not had the best of runs in qualifying, and just like Barrett Rolfe has been on a Monday night, Sage Karam, one of our hard chargers here on a Wednesday.
Absolutely, and for Karam, it's going to be very difficult, I think, overall, but for Jason Galvin, only a 24.6, just couldn't get the momentum that he needed, especially towards that yellow line. And for some of the drivers, I noticed they left a little bit of time on the board where they left about a quarter to a half a car length between the yellow line and where their cars are, and that could be the difference in some cases with the line you take in 1 and 2, as well as in 3 and 4, between being on the pole and being in row 5.
And comfort, I think, here is going to be so important. Justin mentioned Andrew Kinsella talking about not having too much weight jacker in the car. You are going to be relying on that to try and make moves around the outside. 15 seconds left. It's power slide 1, 2, 3. Adrenaline power slide red will have first and third. Blocker on his hunt for a 4th consecutive championship on the outside of row number 1. Qualifying, though, comes to a close. Let's go trackside and take a look at our starting grid in round 5 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. So here is your butt kicker starting grid with a 24.500. Henry Bennett claims his first Lionheart pole position. On his outside, Adam Blocker, the defending series champion, with Brian Carey making it 3 adrenaline cars in the top 3. Joshua Chin breaks the stranglehold for the private label Team Hype. Andrew Kinsella inside of Connor Harrington. The big guns rounding out the first 3 rows on this grid. Ken Hacker along Matt Taylor on row 8 with Jay Brandt and Matt Houston rounding out the top 10 in the field. Brian Beard with Tyler Groff 11th and 12th respectively, with Mike Rasmussen and Tony Showen row 7. Sage Karam on the edge of the top 10 in the championship, on the edge of the top 15 here with lots of work to do alongside Stefan Larkamp in the 62. Samuel Ryman alongside Chris Reagan in the white and purple, with Ron Hacker and Chris Fowler rounding out the top 20. Mike Rigney with Indiana's own Chris Stouffer. Lots of work to do there in the 13 machine with Damon Martinez and Aaron Morgan, row 12 on the grid. Adam Fraser alongside Jason Galvin, one of only 3 winners in this season so far, with Joe Branch and James Krahula, row 14 on the grid. Ryan Otis, the Lionheart Retro Series champion, inside of Brian Greenlee to round out the top 30, with Luis Gonzalez Nunez, the final car to set a qualifying lap time. Field spread by just over half a second. Kalisto all the way back in 32nd position. He's been doing very well in his rookie campaign. He'll have Jason Brophy as well back in the pack, with Ricky Harding, Scott Holmes, and Richie Hearn rounding out our 36-car field. As always, we've got a number of onboard cameras to take a look at throughout today's activity, and let's walk you through the 4 that we will feature with the onboard looks. First up, it's Connor Harrington, and he has the HyperX onboard camera. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Ryan Otis has the Omar's 200 camera on board with Ryan, celebrating the life and legacy of Shari Omar Boggs with the Omar's 200 onboard camera.
Mike Rasmus will have the Graphics Esports on board. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com. And Ron Hacker will have the butt kicker on board. What you see and what you hear is what you feel. For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com.
And of course, not just the 4, but all 36 cars will have onboard looks. Cameras designed by RaceSpott's own Tyler Maxson. So 200 miles here from Sparta, Kentucky. Gladiators about to do battle at the Omar's 200 at Kentucky. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and round 5 of this championship is moments away. His first Lionheart pole position, Henry Bennett in the British Racing Green, has his teammates for company out front. The safety car will be down onto the safety of pit lane. Fielding control of Bennett, then late night for him in England, and we're underway for the first time today. Great launch from the teammate. and across the start-finish line to get underway, Justin. Going to get single file, I think, relatively early, but for now, they're trying to just squabble over some track position.
And already shuffling a little bit, though, as Joshua Chin wants to try and get himself up to second, getting inside of Blocker. And one of the things you talked about was trying to utilize the top. Chin, though, clipped a bit of the apron, though. That allows Blocker up to second again.
Brian Carey is being swarmed right now as across the start-finish line, Harrington pokes to the outside. Jason Brophy started down on pit road. He's rolling off now. He might be lap traffic to think about as we work through the opening stint of this race. Look at Aaron Morgan very sideways as Jason Galvin cuts underneath him, Justin. It is very racy in the mid-pack here. This is 24th and 25th.
And this was some of the expectations from a couple of the drivers for tonight, was the fact that this track is so wide. This is the legacy version of Kentucky. This was from 2011, where you have essentially 4 or 5 different lines that you can run around this racetrack with how flat the banking is here and how much speed you can carry around the racetrack. And in turn, that's where the weight jacker starts to come in, and that's where trying the different lines to get some clean air on the nose essentially comes into play. You need to be able to be flexible to drive these various different lines if you want to try and make some of the moves and try and find any pockets of clean air.
Well, someone who's feeling very comfortable right now is Chris Stouffer. We jump on board with the 13 as he looks to the outside of Chris Reagan, now up 6 already, Justin. Look at him rolling the high line, though. Other cars much more content to ride around down on the inside. Stouffer is building up momentum on the outside. That will help him as he works through the stint.
And Chris Stouffer already up 6 positions, your biggest mover so far. And when talking to him, his strategy, he said, was simple. Pick off drivers and try and save fuel while doing so. And he expected qualifying to be a bit of a struggle a little bit, and we've seen that from him. But now, he's showing the raw pace. It's just a matter, though, of being conservative a little bit on the gas. Keep in mind with that strategy that could come into play later on.
Back out front, starting to get separated. And what was I saying about lap traffic? Justin, there is Jason Brophy. We're not even working lap 6 of this race. And he's got his mirrors filled with the race leaders. But wonderful shot down the back straightaway, as you can see. The top 35 cars still only separated by 8.7 seconds.
Yeah, that lap traffic's not going to make things easy for Henry Bennett to try and break away with the clean air. Clean air has been considered very important for tonight's race. And that's going to be the tough part, is trying to find that pocket and get around Jason Brophy. And that's not going to be easy. Brophy essentially is getting the clean air that Bennett normally would. But in the part of the pack, you can see the various different lines. If you utilize the outside, you can make it work to make passes here with how many lanes there are and how much space you have.
It's not just Stouffer who's now up 7. There's Sage Karam up into 12th. As behind him, Tony Showen trying to get around the outside of Brian Beard through turn 1, who squeezes up to the outside wall and will sweep around the outside and up into 13th position. Teammate behind, Chris Stouffer in the chrome and teal, will try and follow him on through, but it's going to have to wait comfortably for now. Let's turn our attention back up front. Kinsella feels the pressure from the pink machine. That's Jay Brandt in the 15. And I tell you what, Justin, let's jump on board and watch him do the draft here. Try and cut underneath and see how dirty the air is really affecting his car.
You can just see right there how much he's having to lift off the throttle a little bit to make sure he makes the corner. Had to really back it up to just about 200 miles an hour. Some drivers in clean air earlier tonight, or June in practice, were running 212 in the same sections when they were able to run full out, when they didn't have to deal with the dirty air. So it's just that much of a struggle for some of these competitors to try and deal with the aero push and aero wash with this car.
Take a look once more midway through the pack. Out front, it is starting to separate out, but here you can see Brian Beard, 16th position, trying to find clean air on Mike Razmas. Talking about the battle out front, it's teammates Henry Bennett and Adam Blocker. They pulled out a 1-second advantage to Joshua Chin in the 93 machine for the private label Team Hype here, Justin. And Brian Carey, started up in the podium positions, has slipped down into 6th with Kinsella holding on. So Connor Harrington having a very good day up to 4th.
And I think when it comes to Carey, he was just immediately put under attack, especially for Joshua Chin, and just put behind the 8 ball early on. But for now, though, Blocker seems comfortable with where he's running for the most part. He is trying to get this race lead, though. Gets a bit of a run to the inside.
Can he do it? I don't think he can just yet, but I don't know if these two cars will be too happy having Jason Brophy in front of them right now. But we are working lap 13, Justin. Fuel window, we've talked about the strategy, and let's kind of emphasize why that's so important. Drivers will be looking to do this on a two-stop, despite the fact the fuel window is 42 laps.
Yeah, and the main reason for that is drivers are going to try and be able to save in the draft, and we've seen this in the Speedway Series where the window was originally around 39-40. Drivers could make it up to 43-44 laps, for example, for comparison's sake. So when you're in the draft, you're not going as much into the throttle, for example, in the pack. You can back up your corners. You can essentially go half throttle in some cases in some of the corners and try and save gas. And that's what some of the drivers are doing. Others are utilizing lower gears. In fact, you can see here too in this mixed. So you're not utilizing, say, going full out where it may be if you had the full clean air effect that you'd have that concern about fuel. Others right now, at the very least, it seems, are more concerned about just trying to work off one air and save gas and stay in a line at this moment.
Blocker is trying to work the inside, but we're still watching from the onboard look from Connor Harrington as Henry Bennett able to roll momentum around the outside. And I do think if Harrington continues to do what he's doing, he'll get on past his teammate as well. Take a look at the roll bar look for now, as we'll continue to ride on board with various looks that we have throughout the field. Tell you what, let's jump on board with Blocker and see if we can pick up what's going on here as side by side down into the start finish line. They can't go down to the apron just yet, Justin. That will be something they're thinking about, though, coming to the checkered flag.
Yeah, there is a fair amount of bumps, keep in mind, on the apron too, so there's the chance if you go down there, Arjuna, it could destabilize the car. So it is a bit of a risk when it comes to racing a Dallara IR18 to go down there, down to that apron, even when thinking about the potential later on in the race. It's tempting, but it's something that if you do it, you're going to have to be very brave to be able to try it. At the very least, the caution waves.
And I think that's because Aaron Morgan is tumbling down the timing screen. And oh, there's debris scampering through turn 4. Ricky Harding is also being collected in the mess. And Morgan straight down onto pit road. So first caution of the day. Let's go take a look at the first RaceSpot TV replay as well. Pick it up out of turn 3, Justin. Car's already looking a bit tight. And oh, the rear end just steps around on him. I'd suspect that's the weight jacker causing one issue already.
Exactly what we talked about. Just nowhere to go for some of the drivers, though, as they tried to have to scamper around the 48 machine as he snapped around. And there was a bit of contact after the caution flag wave, too, in the checkup effect. Tough break there. That's Ricky Harding who ends up having his rear wing broken off.
And I'd be shocked if there's not left right rear damage as well to his suspension, because that was a fairly hardy clip that he got from behind. One more look then from the onboard look with Morgan, and watch the hands here. That's what's crucial. You can already see they're coming around, Justin. And well, that hit from behind just effectively ended the day.
Yeah, Morgan's not going to be able to get that car fixed, and you can see massive suspension damage from that situation. Broke one of the back tie rods. And now, as expected, just about everybody coming down to the pit lane here, because we talked about this a little bit. This essentially makes it a two-stopper for sure.
And so, this is the pit stop that really you can't afford to miss your box. We've seen it on occasion. What will happen here in the race off of pit road? Up on the jacks they go as James Krahula stays out there to lead a lap. Henry Bennett will lead then as we roll off. Blocker in second. Harrington up into third. I'm not sure if Kinsella's rolling out in front of Joshua Chin. He's managed to hold on. Further back in your pack, let's pick up some of the hard charges that we were following slightly earlier, Justin. Sage Karam is now down in 13th, so has been unable to continue working forward, as has Chris Stouffer, who's hung around in the 15th position as well. So maybe an indication that after 15 laps, tires are starting to be a bit more of a factor than we expected.
Yeah, this is a track, keep in mind, that can eat up tires a bit because it's a bit of a rougher surface here at Kentucky Speedway where the fall-off can start to build up, especially as you build up the run. The fall-off for some of the drivers was in some of the dirty air, reaching about a couple tenths or so already. So I think once you get the goodie out of your tires, so to speak, that's where you start to really have to deal with the conditions of the track as well as the conditions around you, and that's definitely going to be a major factor later on in this race, I think.
And so, first caution on the day out of our 36 starters. Does look as though 2 retirements. Aaron Morgan has been stationary for just under 3 minutes and counting. Ricky Harding back down onto pit road. I would suspect trying to get some right rear suspension damage fixed. This helps, you know who, Justin? Jason Brophy after the pit start. He will find himself at the tail end of the field in 34th position, but does have a chance to work his way up through the field in what will be an important race for him, because we do have drop weeks in this championship, but you never want to use them early in the season.
No, you don't. You don't want to rely on them either as a driver, because if you end up having to rely on them, it ends up being where you're essentially having to be over-aggressive, and it gets you to where you make mistakes, and in turn it puts you into a hole that sometimes you can't claw out of as a driver. So you need to be able to perform consistently and perform well to where you don't have to worry about that. Keep the drops at the back of your hand and don't worry about them. The interesting thing that I've noticed here, though, as just about to mention, James Grahula comes in, is going to be how Brophy tries to respond from the back of the field. We've seen how well he was able to utilize the clean air, taking it away from the race leaders. Now, we're about to see how things fare out for where he's going to have to deal with a ton of dirty air and aero wash coming up here.
Yeah, Brophy's not in 9th. Don't worry, our graphics may be just going a bit haywire under caution here. Working lap 22 out of 134. A race that traditionally has not had too many cautions. 6 in the opening 3 races from Sparta, Kentucky, but since then, just 3 to 4 in the 4 races since. So one that you might not expect to see too many more, but like we saw 12 months ago, Justin, it might be at the very end of the race. So you want to be out front, and Adam Blocker and Henry Bennett controlling the clean air right now.
Yeah, and you can tell with how Adam Blocker was racing, he at the very least wanted to take away that control and try and score as many points as he could. But it's not going to be easy, especially with how Henry Bennett's been performing so far tonight. Bennett is not backing down here in this fight for the race lead. It's going to be an interesting battle, though. We've seen how immediately the draft pulled some of the drivers from 3rd or 4th to a side-by-side on the initial start.
Pace car down onto the safety of pit lane. Good jump then from Bennett. Blocker might get swarmed as we come across the line. Harrington did get an equally good jump. In through turn 1, though, it's Chin who is having to defend from Kinsella. Single file for the most part. And back underway after our first caution on the day. Building up the momentum. Already in excess of 200 miles an hour. There goes Harrington to the inside. I did think the momentum from Blocker wasn't going to be good enough. But once more, Justin, Harrington getting very close to the yellow line and now has to defend from behind.
I think he actually clipped it a little bit. Same mistake that Joshua Chin made on the first start of the race, where they tried to send it so hard on the bottom of the racetrack they had to lift essentially to make sure they didn't push up into Blocker, and ended up in turn clipping the apron, trying to run as low as they could. And now it's put them in the same box as they were before, having to deal with the dirty air and try and have to play defense here with Kinsella and Brian Carey.
Look at the slide job being thrown from the purple machine. The king of chins wants to get back up into the podium positions. Looks to the inside of his teammate as they work through turn 1 and 2. But Harrington is having none of that. Almost up into the outside retaining wall. Just about holds on to that one. Aaron Morgan jumping into our YouTube chat. Never had it get near loose at any point with the settings that he was running. But that's the cruel thing about this car, Justin. Dirty air, it can just take one moment, and Aaron Morgan's race ends just like that.
Yeah, again, a tough break, and where you essentially need to be near perfect when it comes to adjustments, especially with the weight jacker for this type of race tonight. And now, those weight jackers are going to be fairly busy in some of these battles, especially if you're, say, side-by-side like this, where you're trying to find your way by anyone, anywhere at this point, but just struggling to try and get the run completely. The outside seems to be carrying a lot of momentum here on defense and on offense so far. It's just a matter of getting there to be side by side by Apex.
Jason Galvin up 5 on the day so far. edge of the top 20 is trying to close up on the all-white Mike Rigney in the 00, using momentum as Rigney now getting checked up behind Chris Fowler, who's also checked up behind his teammate Stefan Larkamp. Momentum so crucial, almost 3 wide entering the corner as Fowler takes away the clean air from Galvin. It's not going to hold on to the position as Rigney comes back around the outside. This is fun, really fun action, Justin. I must say, Kentucky not always known for producing the side-by-side stuff, but these drivers really putting on a show.
They have been indeed so far. It might spread out a little bit once we get the tire wear to fair in, yes. But when these tires are at their freshest, absolutely you can see these aggressive battles that we've been seeing so far in the field. And now, starting to see the different lines really start to factor in up the front as well as the tires wear out. Jay Brandt seems to have adjusted to some of that aero wash from before. He seems to be handling a bit better and now is starting to find better pockets utilizing the second groove.
Brian Carey down to 7, so he's lost 4 on the day so far. Will want to correct that slide as soon as he can, but his teammate and fellow Canadian to the inside of the King of Chins. This is allowing Connor Harrington to try and close the gap out front. It's 4/10, almost half a second between Bennett and Blocker. Connor Harrington further 6/10 adrift with Joshua Chin half a second back. Andrew Kinsella all in his rear view mirrors. We'll check out, by the way, Justin, some more action further back, because I don't know what it is about the battles between 15th and 20th position, but they really are keeping close. As I think now it's Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Joe Branch having a bit of a fun fight.
Yeah, looking like it's fairly fun so far. How about staggered 3 wide? And also you have Richie Hearn also joining the scrap towards the rear end of the field so far. And all of these drivers trying to find a way to push on forward. For Richie Hearn, it's also a +7 for him from his starting position in the 70 machine. See just how much you have to focus on what's ahead to make sure you have the awareness of, okay, where do I run? If you choose to run, you see that aero wash can lose you a bit of time off the corner exit.
Well, he really had nowhere to go because they were effectively 3 wide as Joe Branch split the difference between Nunez and I believe that's Chris Reagan, just trying to find a pocket of clean air to work himself. Reagan, though, on the outside, almost up into the wall once more. There have been a number of cars flirting with disaster, Justin. And as we get later in this race and the tires start to burn off, that's not something you can afford to do. Meanwhile, Jason Brophy already on his recovery drive, edge of the top 30, looks to the inside of Richie Hearn.
Yeah, right now looking at the times, he's running lap times in the 25-second bracket at the moment, so he is losing a fair bit of ground here. But the main thing is just hoping for a bit of luck to go his way on the strategy, because that's part of it too. Bit of trouble in front of him.
I believe that's Chris Fowler with the green wheel, so second caution on the day, and once more it's out of turn 4. I wonder if Brian Greenlee, there's a car going through the grass. That is Greenlee. Got a RaceSpot TV replay to take a look at then, Justin, and I believe Greenlee might have come across the scene of the incident and gone flying for the hills. Once more a wiggle through 4, and we'll watch now to see if we can pick up what happens to the Greenlee machine.
And it looks like at the very least, I think that was the car that went through the grass I think we're talking about here. Let's take a look here at this wiggle, though. Or rather from Greenlee, I should rather say, where he's got to choose somewhere, anywhere to go. There's a car coming down the racetrack. He chose to go with the only hole that was available at the time, which was the grass, unfortunately for him, but still able to keep it from spinning up the racetrack. It seems to keep it away from damage, but for Fowler, just a wiggle as he came across those seams is enough to snap that car loose.
And you can see he's trying to hang on for sheer desperation, but at the speeds that we're racing, Justin, there's not much time. Right rear up into the wall, and I'm sure from there it only got worse. Not in control as he's sliding down the track, and Greenlee does a good job to hold on. Back to live pictures, though. Pit lane, once more a very busy place, but not when the private label Team Hype machine stays out. Connor Harrington, Joshua Chin, first and second. The Adrenaline teammates, Justin, down onto pit road.
And an interesting decision here. We did run about 17 laps, including the caution flag laps, so it's understandable why they would go with this, be able to come in fuel, get fresh rubber, especially since we talked about this to factor in about 15 green flag laps, starting to pop in with how the trends have played so far. But it's obviously a track position ploy when it comes to Harrington, Chin, Brandt, Graf, Karam especially as well, to see, okay, can we catch a caution flag in time before we have to come in for one final stop under green, or rather in towards a second potential stop. We're now in the spot where fuel is going to be very tight as well to make it to a one-stop. Keep in mind with the numbers that we were talking about a little bit earlier, where if you save, you might be able to get yourself to there if you save both runs.
Interesting call. That's all I really have to say, Justin, because I think it's a bit early to now be working back from 18th position, because that's where Henry Bennett finds himself. The first of the cars that have come down pit road. Sage Karam finds himself up in the top 5. He'll be pretty happy with himself, as will his teammate Damon Martinez. 15 positions gained on the day. 8th position for the 3 car. Ryan Otis, a Lionheart Retro Series champion in the 95. 17 positions gained. He's up 12. So cars using this to cycle their way through. And now fresh tires, Justin. It's only 18 laps in the run, so not even halfway. I don't know how easy it's going to be for the cars to cut their way through.
I think we're going to see at least a few drivers being able to dart their way side by side in the first laps here, but the interesting mark is going to be about 10-15 laps into the run once more, where they lose the goodie on their tires. And that's where, in turn, they may get themselves stuck in traffic a little bit, where it can be tough with some of the aero wash. So in other words, they're going to need to be very aggressive early on. Cautiously aggressive is probably the better way, where you don't want to put yourself in too big of a situation where you risk getting to a massive incident, but you also at the same time need to find your way as the lead car on your strategy, or at the very least get yourself back into the track position in case things start to equalize later on in this race.
At least one car that will have some experience of working his way up is Jason Galvin. He came down onto pit road. He's down in 26th position. Lights should go off on the pace car this time across, so we will restart working lap 40 out of 134. Second caution of the day. Once more, car losing control out of turn 4. Drivers very much, Justin, should start to be aware. I wonder what the difference is. It could just be, you know, the effect and accumulation of all of the dirty air in front. It could also be a bit of weather shifting around in the session.
Yeah, possibly. We are under full lights, but it is partly cloudy skies at the moment. Track temperature is fairly cool at the moment at 27 degrees Celsius. So this track is starting to build up a little bit of heat at the moment, but it is still a bit more on the cooler side in terms of potential grip. It's still going to be getting more and more slicker, though, potentially, as they run more laps and build up more heat into this racetrack.
10-kilometer-an-hour winds. Not sure if that's strong enough to really gust and cause the type of issues we're seeing out of turn 4, but again, something to watch out for then is at the front, private label Team Hype leading the team championships. And at the front, once more, Connor Harrington wants his fifth Lionheart IndyCar Series victory. He brings us back to the green flag action with his teammate in close pursuit. Once more, single file across the start-finish line. You have to look at Tyler Graf trying to get past Jay Brandt side by side for third. Excuse me, that's Sage Karam getting on past Tyler Graf in the minus 273 sponsored machine. It's a bit of separation, Justin, from there on back. Not the most tidy of restarts. That won't help the cars that came down onto pit road.
It's not going to help whatsoever. They're going to have to work, as talked about, very aggressively to be able to properly make their way through this traffic while getting themselves into trouble. If anything, Henry Bennett didn't get the best of launches here and has lost a bit of ground. So have several of the other drivers that are all fanned out in the midst of this traffic now, where they're trying to sort themselves back together. Okay, if you're one of these drivers, you're thinking, I've got to do this properly, or at least be patient now with how the start turned out for some of these competitors.
And so as we work our way back up to speed, 20 laps, that's the number that we'll be watching out for the cars out front to come down onto pit road. Edge of the top 10, Ron Hacker, edge of the top 15. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, 16 positions gained for him so far. We'll have to be watching in his rearview mirrors because almost 3 wide effectively, Justin. Here comes the charge as Adam Blocker has gotten past Henry Bennett, and the Canadian Kinsella slips on past as well.
And that's a big pass because that's the net lead for the strategy, I should say. So that is exactly what Blocker was trying to do with the battle with going on with Clean Air before with Bennett before the first caution flag. So now it's going to be the true test of how will Bennett now fare with the dirty air? Well, we're seeing the response right now where he's getting shuffled back by some of his fellow friends.
But these guys have hit a wall. Blocker unable to get past James Krahula, Justin, and the lap times, well, it's 0.6 of a second difference. Connor Harrington last time at 24.802. Blocker finally able to cut around. First Krahula, now Ron Hacker up into 17th position for Blocker. But last time for Blocker was a 25.444, so they are losing time. Hand over fist right now.
Now only 24.7's up at the front of the field in comparison's sake. Some of the fastest laps they've been sending so far. So they're working together nice and well, nice and calm. Meanwhile, you have that hapticness that can hold you up, and for drivers, that can be very frustrating because if you battle too long here, Arjuna, it can potentially lose you the chance to reel in others down the straightaway with the help of the draft, as it's going to be interesting again how this all plays out now with some of the shuffling.
I think Bennett is starting to lose track of his teammates out front. Kinsella trying to go all the way down to the inside of the track as 3 wide. Krahula takes advantage. Here comes Carey as well. They are getting very feisty, knowing the importance of the tires that they have. Almost contact between Hacker and Kinsella. They will hold on, Justin. It's still side by side at the line.
Leaning on Char a little bit there as Kinsella, not wanting to give up an inch here with this fight, is really having to back off and back up these corners right now, though. I think he realized he wasn't going to be able to make the pass properly and just decided, you know what, I need to reset here. Try and sort myself back out.
Bennett continues to slide. Here comes Razmas in the 68 trying to come around as well. Bennett started at the front of all of the teammates, now finds himself in 24th and struggling to build up momentum. Wonder if there's a bit of damage on his machine. See if we can pick up what's happened there. Rigney in the 00 defends from Otis behind. But Stefan Larkamp in front, edge of the top 20. Out front, Harrington has cycled himself back to the front with Joshua Chin just a 1/10 of a second behind. Jay Brunt very impressively running in third here, Justin, but he's got Sage Karam trying to hunt him down.
Now for Karam, he is the fastest car on the racetrack by a couple 100s at the moment compared to Brant last time by the overall average. Well, Brant has that advantage for now is the big key question. Now Karam, though, is going to have a bit more cleaner air for the corners, but needs to get back within a bit of the draft to be able to close in down the straightaways, and that's the one thing that's going to hamper his ability to close up, especially with them being back by that 1 second disadvantage.
Can see the gap out front continuing to close, but I think now at this point where Joshua Chin just not, I would say, accepting that he's going to run around behind his teammate for now, but just working through the next 10 laps into the pit window, see if he can try and save some fuel potentially. Teammates once more side by side. This time it's Brian Carey and Tony Showen at 20th and 21st position. These guys unable to carve their way through like Kinsella and Blocker have been able to just yet. And here's come Christopher to take advantage as well. So for the Adrenaline teammates right now, Justin, it's not playing out the way they wanted. They'll be hoping that things come out at the end of the race just as they would have hoped.
You can't panic, though, at this point, because as we've seen throughout the season, a lot can shuffle. We are reaching that point where for some of these drivers, the tires have shown drivers starting to bobble loose with either the weight check or some of the seams in turns 3 and 4. It's a matter, though, of will that trend continue? For Henry Bennett, meanwhile, the trend's not looking good. Henry Bennett's just not looking comfortable at all in the dirty air.
And I'm trying to pull up a graphic that will show us the lap times from Bennett so far. There is no way that he's doing a 25.629. He must have got a bit of damage, and we will see if we can pick that up as soon as we can, Justin. But clearly not comfortable, and after taking pole, and not how he would have wanted this to go. So he'll have to hang in there, hope for a caution, maybe get some damage fixed, and rebound late in this race.
And I'm trying to tell where it might potentially be in this case where it just seems like this is, again, surprising. At the back of the field, yes, the pace has been in the 25.2s with the amount of drivers lined up. But the pace that Bennett is running, again, as you talked about, is absolutely surprising, yes. So even if it's the tiniest of a tweak to one of the wings, it can cause a potential loss of speed. So it could be something very minor, could be something potentially even with the gearing. We'll have to see.
Well, and you know who's right behind Bennett right now? His main rival in the Rookie of the Year Championship. Two very experienced competitors in the Dallara IR18. You've got first Jason Brophy and, of course, Henry Bennett as well. Here comes Brophy in the yellow private label Team Hype machine. Started from pit road. Now passes his rival up into 25th position. The 88 car has a lot of work still to do. Lap 37, though, for Connor Harrington out front. Justin builds up an 0.8 of a second advantage. And with Jay Brandt, a further half a second behind. Does look as though now Joshua Chin has nothing to do in terms of holding on to the car. And Jay Brandt might even look to try and get on past.
Yeah, Joshua Chin is just struggling a little bit now with that pace, absolutely. How about 0.4 of a second slower than Harrington last time by, 0.3 slower than Brandt. So he's obviously now gone into where he's trying the different lines going a bit lower. It's just not working. Brandt feels more comfortable going higher up on the racetrack above that first seam. And that seems to be, again, where drivers have been able to utilize the pace. It seems almost as though Chin is taking the corner slightly too flat, and that's where he's losing some of the pace possibly.
Looks like he's trying to enter too fast. That's what you're effectively saying, right, Justin?
Yes. Essentially, yes.
And you can see the way that Chin's also just sliding up the track as we apex through the corner. Chin is using all of the shortest line that he can, whereas Jay Brandt, a bit kinder to his tires, running up a couple of grooves. I think A, to benefit the tires, also to try and just stay out of the clean air. Now he tucks into the draft, because I think now he knows that Chin is far enough behind Harrington. He's got to try and take advantage now.
Yeah, it's now 1.4-ish seconds now and growing with the clean air for Harrington. But Brandt's going to have to deal with that aero wash himself. He's starting to lose a bit of time back. Keep in mind that on blocker, for reference sake, is up to 15th position still, and it's still the opportunity to be able to save. Right now the times are about 0.3 of a second slower in the heart of the pack, but keep in mind these are the drivers that, the ones I should say, who did come into the pit lane the last caution flag, can potentially try and make it a one-stop. It's going to be a tight one where they're going to have to save during this run, but it's going to be a potential possibility as some of the drivers are going to have to come in these upcoming laps here.
Harrington ticks to lap 42 in his stint. Did have a couple of cautions so far, so won't be coming down immediately. Blocker down to the yellow line, down a gear as well, trying to just find a way past Adam Fraser. Not sure if there's a car coming down to pit road. I believe the flood is starting, Justin. It begins with Chris Reagan and Ron Hacker down on pit road.
There were two of the drivers who got shuffled to the back of the field and quickly when it comes to strategy, but two different line methods, interestingly enough. Hacker elected to go through 3 and 4 and stay on the racetrack, but Reagan elected to use the access road here. Keep in mind that you can utilize the racetrack here to enter the pit lane rather than use the access road for tonight, I believe.
So we'll wait and see how that all cycles out. It is not the easiest of pit roads to make your way onto and off of. That will be where drivers can try and take advantage. Reagan a full 2 seconds quicker than Hacker, so that gives you a bit of an indication there as here comes Sage Karam down onto pit road. Top 10 in the championship so far, and our only repeat winner. We keep watching the 44 machine, Justin. Let's see how he comes down onto pit road.
Looks like he's going to stay out this lap. He is the quickest car on the racetrack, so... And this is the main ploy, is hoping that you get a caution flag now with the drivers indicating they're coming into pit. That was a trouble spot, keep in mind, for the Speedway Series in Atlanta a couple days ago. And this is the same type of track that can catch you a guard in the pit lane. But you can see coming in this time by Able to do it nice and smoothly, nice and slow, directly to the speed limit.
And you can see playing the pit strategy games as well, not using the limiter, gaining the little bit of an advantage that he can. His teammate stays out for an additional lap, though, trying a potential overcut here. The cars on fresh tires now cycling their way up into the top 10 as Harrington still trundling down onto pit road. Here comes, I think, Joshua Chin. Yes, indeed, slowing down, blending down onto pit entry. Chin nails that entry. Brandt cycles through to the race lead. He'll take the point for leading a lap as well. Where has Harrington cycled out then, Justin?
Looking like Harrington at the moment has cycled 31 seconds behind the current race leader in Brandt. But he's still coming off the pit lane here, and this is a very tricky pit exit here at Kentucky because there's a lot of marbles that go down there. There's the closeness of the safer barrier, and as well, there's the chance drivers can snap loose coming right onto the racetrack. And for Harrington, looking like he cycled in front of Karen by a good 4 seconds for reference sakes. That's how big of a difference some of this air was. It's going to be interesting where he cycles to Chin. I think he's going to jump him and then some.
Chin being very tentative. There goes Harrington, and indeed you're right. There goes Kinsella as well. Crucial thing here, Justin, these cars 1 lap down. Harrington, by virtue of the fact that he gained a little bit more time on track, will hold on to the lead lap for now, and fresh tires should keep him there. But Joshua Chin is going to have to fight his way past the likes of Kinsella and Blocker to get back onto the lead lap. And if a caution flag flies now, Joshua Chin finds himself stuck in an opportune position.
Be absolutely huge right now for some of these drivers, especially with how many drivers would be pinned at this point or be shuffled to the back and still potentially need one more stop. So, in other words, you're needing to essentially utilize those fresh tires and quickly. Chin this time by a 24.8. Leaders are running 25 flats right now at the front of the field.
You can see the 2 leaders as well. Kinsella has cycled to the front of the field. One of only 3 active drivers with wins at this track, Justin. James Krahula, Christopher, and Andrew Kinsella came into this race with that honor. But Kinsella, P5 in the all-time laps led board, 42, and he's adding to that total right now.
Yeah, it's been an interesting race for him. Started in traffic, was top 5 for much of the first runs of the race, then got shuffled back, and now he's in a spot where, with all the traffic, he was able to pounce on by. And he, as we talked about, he knows what he's doing. And we have a problem, a headset failure apparently for Brian Carey.
Oh no, qualified up in 3rd, big damage, stuck on the outside. 3rd caution then of the day. And it's right in that pit stop cycle. Harrington, the big winner. He cycled out in front of his teammate. Joshua Chin trapped 1 lap down, as is Justin Sage Karam.
Wow. And Brian Carey over the radio said he had something happen to the headset he was using. An obvious technical failure here because you're going to see he had no idea where he was going in the corner.
Carey has been struggling with some technical gremlins, and unfortunately they bit during the race. One more look at the onboard if we can, and we'll cycle it back even further, Justin. Take a look at this roll bar shot if we can pull it up right now. The Canadian, unfortunate incident in a race that was looking promising for him.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate, and this has just changed the whole complexion of the race, but when you have no idea where you're going, it makes it very difficult, of course, to stay out of trouble. And just a situation where Carey had no idea what was going on, unfortunately, with what was going on, and just nowhere for him to essentially go. It's hard to escape when you have an issue like that.
Well, Power Slide will be back at the front, but Connor Harrington finds himself now alone. No teammates to help him out. And with not 1, not 2, but 4 Power Slide drivers stacked up behind him, it will be Harrington at the front of your field, Justin, with 7-lap all tires. Kinsella in 2nd, Adam Blocker in 3rd, with Tony Showen and Chris Stouffer rounding out the top 5.
Yeah, this whole race just got flipped upside down, essentially, with how many drivers are now into a tough window here, potentially. But interestingly enough, I think Harrington potentially maybe thinking about staying out here possibly since he had already come into pit. It's still 1 stopper from here. Keep in mind, it's still where drivers will have to split this run in half or try and pit with under 20 laps to go, possibly. So there's going to be a lot of shuffling in terms of how this race could play out for several of these drivers. Several of them, I obviously did not want to see that caution at the time.
And yeah, as the muscle man AJ Musselman says in our YouTube chat, sim racing's version of tire blowout. Max Verstappen can attest to that. You think back to, I believe it was the 2019 or 2018, 24 hours of Spa. Verstappen driving with Lando Norris for Team Redline. His hoisting belt brake set failed in the final hour of the race. He had to come to a stop using the barriers on the outside of Malmedy, reset back onto pit road, and his Team Redline teammates took over and took them to the checkered flag and victory in that race. It's cruel, Justin, and unfortunately Brian Carey will have to dig deep and rebound next time when we head to Mid-Ohio.
And as someone who also uses VR for when he does race, it's very tough when you have that, because it essentially cuts off all your senses of exactly where you're at. It's visually as well as physically, sense-wise, where it's disorientating. It's unfortunate, again, when it all happens, and it's just a bad feeling whenever it does end up happening in a big situation like this.
Lights should go off on the pace truck, as we should probably call it. Will allow Joshua Chin to cycle around to the back of the field, as will Sage Karam. So no games being played there by cars, trying to keep them, the fellow competitors, trapped one lap down. So we will still have 31 cars on the lead lap here today, Justin. 36 starters. Does look as though 3 retirements. Carey, Fowler, and Morgan. James Kahula and Adam Fraser, the only cars not on the leading lap.
Yeah, and most of those drivers have had struggles throughout the day. So on the bright side, they're on the lead lap, but it absolutely essentially goes bust on the strategy. For our drivers like Henry Bennett, stops the bleeding. Jason Brophy, exactly what he needed. Exactly what we're talking about. You get luck at some point, you get yourself positioning. Jason Galvin, now up there. So we have several different drivers that are right now in that conversation. The interesting thing is going to be, can Harrington hold on to this race lead with the slightly older tires by utilizing that clean air is the biggest thing.
What can the teammates do as well? You can see them formed up. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. They'll all be in voice communicating with one another. And Harrington, he's got Brophy on the edge of the top 10. The 88 machine, lots of work to do to join the 44 out front. Pace truck down onto the safety of pit lane for the 3rd time today. Harrington gets a good launch. Kinsella, not such a great one. And single file across the start-finish line we go. We will see the speeds build up and the double file action start to build. We'll check in back in the pack as they come through turn 1. Krahula up on the outside line there, Justin, with Kalisto. He's up 20 positions on the day. He's in 12th right now, feeling pretty good about his chances.
And this is going to be where, for some of these drivers, absolutely, they're going to be the benefactors, or beneficiaries, I should rather say, with all of this, where we haven't seen them towards the front much of the day. They run patiently and wait for the opportunity to pounce exactly like this. But how about 3-wide racing action now in the heart of the pack? It's exactly what drivers were expecting on the fresh tires throughout the race today.
And Joshua Chin trying to take a full advantage. Sage Karam as well. They are working their way to try and find a way past Scott Holmes. These two had some fun fights last year, continuing to do battle. Karam missed out at Phoenix, trying to make up for the points he's lost there. Chin still stuck up on the outside line, Justin. Doesn't seem to be able to make that work, but at the same time, Karam, and now it's a slot into line. So we're at that point already where outside line building up momentum very quickly.
Yeah, we've seen this a little bit before earlier on this race. It's starting to really build itself up right now. Karam, meanwhile, trying to fake out some of these drivers, keep in mind, to try and trick them into the bottom line. All this as well. Harrington, he's in a prime position right now. As long as he can keep this clean air, he's in a great spot. But the interesting mark is going to be the strategy differential later on in this race if this goes green to pit stops.
Let's jump on board with Ryan Otis, who of course has our almost 200 at Kentucky on board look. And tell you what, he's also our Sim Experience featured drivers. 25 starts in the IndyCar Series with 15 top 10s and an additional 5 top 9s. A first start back in Motegi in Season 4, and only a solitary pole to his name, Justin. 4 second-place finishes. That race win has been oh so elusive, but our Lionheart Retro Series champion, he's making a full run at this championship this year. Watch out for him to maybe look at being in HyperX victory lane later on in the season.
He's been improving more and more as this campaign's gone on as well. We've seen him especially be strong on the road courses at times throughout the season. He's getting more and more used to this car compared to the Retro Series, and it's definitely showing. It's just a matter of getting the full luck to utilize that. As up at the front, keep in mind, they're starting to snake a little bit down the straightaways. Kinsella's got to run. In fact, he was 0.2 of a second quicker than Harrington last time, and Blocker has been upwards of 0.4 quicker than these drivers.
But coming through turn 3, Justin, you saw Kinsella getting a bit loose in the dirty air. Checked up momentum. Kinsella once more now has to work to the back. Let's check in with Tony Schowen and Richie Hearn. Schowen around the outside of the former Indy 500 competitor, but Richie Hearn, Justin, 29 positions gained on the day. One more big benefactor from the way the cautions have flown, and you can see on the left-hand side of the screen there are lots of cars that have worked themselves up 20-plus positions.
Richie's doing a very impressive job being able to defend multiple different positions at once here in multiple different lines. He's going to have to be very careful, though, with how dicey things are getting with both Brophy and Rasmus, two drivers that are willing to make some fairly bold moves at times and have the skills to be able to stick with those moves.
And I think Brophy as well now looks to the inside, trying to get up into 7th. Working closer and closer to join his teammate out front, with Joshua Chin trying to get on past a number of cars, but still tangled up in some turmoil. In the top 15 positions, Brophy unable to slot on past. These cars are starting to lose track of the cars in front. 1.2 seconds is the gap between Tony Schowen and Richie Hearn. Jason Brophy will very much want to scamper on past as quickly as he can. Back out front, it's 0.2 of a second between the race leaders, Justin, and Adam Blocker is slowly catching them up.
Yeah, Blocker has the fastest lap of the race, keep in mind, at 24.602, and that's in part with some of the drafts he's been able to sniff down some of these straightaways, and he's been utilizing the bottom line compared to the others who have been wanting the top line when he's been stuck in dirty air. And as we've seen, if there's enough cars, he's been able to make the move. The tough part is, now he's going to have to claw his way forward slowly but surely against some of the best up at the front. Keep in mind, though, dirty air is now being fed to the race leader, I think, from Ricky Harden.
We're going to step aside for a quick commercial break. Working lap 89 out of 134 in the OMAS 200 at Kentucky. Round 5 in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after these messages from our partners. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpottv and Round 5 coverage of the Lionheart IndyCar Series. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside for today's coverage is Justin Prince, working lap 94 out of 134. 3 cautions on the day so far, and it's Connor Harrington that leads from Andrew Kinsella and Adam Blocker in close pursuit. Justin, it's been an interesting race so far. One more pit stop left on the agenda, and already a couple of cars down onto pit road.
Yeah, right now some of those drivers trying to mix up the strategy and some of those drivers having to get some repairs done. Martinez hit the back end of, I believe, Tyler Graf's machine that ended up shearing off part of his front one. But outside of that, it's been clean and green throughout this run so far with some great battles and some great strategy coming into play. This race has also seen some various fireworks and some weight checker moments so far. We've seen a little bit of it all tonight here at Kentucky.
I think we might have a bit more to come as well. You can see there Blocker and Kinsella, only a couple of tenths separating them, but Harrington has used the lap traffic to his advantage. Justin scampers on past Ricky Harding, 1.3 seconds clear, and at one point it was Adrenaline Motorsports in control of this race. Caution cycled them slightly further back in your field, and then caution cycled them slightly further back up the field, and Harrington looking good for a 5th victory in the Lionheart IndyCar Series.
Absolutely, we are inside the window, keep in mind, for drivers to come down as talked about. So as long as he doesn't make any major mistakes, he's in the prime position to absolutely try and pounce for what would be a big victory for this organization so far. We've talked about it all season, coming into this series, wanting to perform at this level, especially with how things had formed up, especially with who's been backing private label Team Hype throughout the season. It's been a stellar race for Harrington, up at the front just about the entire day. The window is open. His teammate Joshua Chin is elected to come down.
And Chin, of course, who found himself trapped a lap down in that last caution, trying to use potentially an undercut here as he will come down onto the lane on lap 99. Be hoping as well that he doesn't get trapped. 1 lap down once more in today's activities. Gap between Blocker and Kinsella is starting to build up here, Justin, and I mentioned it at the start of the broadcast. 4 consecutive podiums for Adam Blocker. He hasn't been in HyperX victory lane since the season opener at the Homestead Miami Speedway, but championships are won on consistency, and well, you can't get much more consistent than how Blocker's been in the opening stanza of this championship.
And as you said, that's exactly what you need to do, especially early on in the season if you want to put up a championship fight. You can't afford to make any major mistakes. And for him, he's focused a lot this season on, okay, let's get some strong points scored at these races. Is it worth risking potentially finishing in 20th position with a crash for the race lead, or is it worth finishing, say, top 3, and you get a very hearty amount of points that gets you a decent amount of standings and positionings in said standings? So it's all a balancing act, so to speak, Arjuna, to be able to decide on all that. But if you want to win the championship, you have to think big picture like that.
On board with the Graphics Esports camera with Mike Rasmussen in the 68. He's up 5 positions on the day. They are pulling away from Richie Hearn on the edge of the top 10. 1 second between the 68 and the 70 as continued action further in the pack. Mike Rigney down onto the pit road this time around, so the floodgates are opened. I don't think you want to be the first to blink at this point, Justin, though. Like we were saying with Joshua Chin, you once more put yourself in a position where if the caution comes out, you are 1 lap down. Connor Harrington, 37 laps and counting on his run. We're going until that fuel tank is out of fuel.
That's what he's going to have to do, essentially, right? And that's going to be the tough window where he's going to be on pins and needles for about 7 laps, hoping, okay, I've come down. Can we please stay green at that moment? If we have a similar situation as before where a caution comes out in the middle of the cycle, that absolutely will shake up the complexion of this entire race once more.
Matt Taylor down onto pit road along with Scott Holmes in the 67, watching Sage Karam all the way down to the inside. Missed out on the action at Phoenix, Justin. That's put him in a bit of a hole, and if he can't get the result here that I think is pace warrants based on what we've seen here today, he'll be heading into the month of May. Indy 500 commitments, I'm sure, at the forefront of his mind. We know he wants a Lionheart Championship in 2021. It's looking good potentially in the Retro Series. We do know, we've talked to him on racespottv in the past, he loves a battle with Blocker. He wants to come out on top this year.
And this race has not been the best of races for him. He's been marred in traffic much of the race, even when he's got it on the strategy card that got him track position with that earlier caution flag in the race, the second caution in particular of the race. He couldn't really progress his way forward like he has at some of the other tracks this season when he's been marred in traffic in some of the other series. It's just been that type of a night where he's just been essentially marred inside the edge of the top 10. It's just been almost like a conveyor belt where he's gained cars and spots, then loses spots, gains positions, loses spots, gains positions, loses spots, etc.
Wonder when he'll come down onto pit road as he's weaving, working lap 43. So one of the cars to come down first. Here he comes as well. Lap 109, the marker then for Sage Karam in the 2. The black HyperX machine onto pit road for the final time in today's action. Look back to the front then. Sage Karam's had a fun fight with Connor Harrington the last time that Connor took victory at the Indianapolis Oval in the Indy GP just over 12 months ago. That race happened. Connor Harrington works lap 43, Justin. I would expect he's coming down, if not this lap, the next time around.
He has to when it comes to the fuel. I believe he's indicated that he's coming down. And he's been able to build a sizable margin over Blocker of almost 4 seconds or so, and Kinsella rather, of 3 seconds too. So just a great stint overall to utilize the air, have the help of some of the traffic, and overall puts himself into a solid spot. Just needs this race to go green for it to play out the way he's hoping.
Can't afford to make a mistake. A number of cars have slid through their box in today's action. Here comes Harrington for the final time today. Into the box very cleanly. Up on the jacks he goes. Time counting as the fuel goes in. The tires get replaced. Black gold being put on that car. 8.1 seconds stationary, Justin. That was a very tidy pit stop. Now Harrington has to nail his pit exit as well.
This was one of the strengths earlier on in the race for him compared to his teammate in Chin. Those bumps nearly shot him up the racetrack, though. Had only gone in the 140s at the highest down in the mile-per-hour range. Still, though, the question's going to be where he's going to cycle around once Kinsella and Blocker come in. That's going to be the biggest telling sign of how that exit was.
Jason Brophy and Henry Bennett down onto pit road as well. So the two top rookies so far this season coming down onto pit road as Harrington right in front of James Grahula. Now builds up his speed, excess of 200 miles an hour. Out front, Andrew Kinsella slipped on past some lap traffic. 1 second clear of his teammate, Justin. And once more on the left side of your screen, let's take a look at the intervals between the cars. There's 1 second basically between the top 5 right now, as Ryan Otis is the latest car to blink and come down onto pit road.
Yeah, you can tell right now Kinsella's going to have to think about how this is going to play out with this traffic. That's going to cost him a bit of time. It's actually cost him a few tenths of a second, I believe, to Connor Harrington. Let by some of the faster traffic. Blocker, keep in mind, is utilizing the top line. One of the air drivers quietly has been able to claw his way on forward. We talked about it. Chris Stouffer is just behind these drivers too. Don't forget, with how his performance has been, expected this to be that type of a race for him where he gained positions and saved fuel. And guess what? It's gone exactly to the script.
Lap 42 then on the stint for the Adrenaline teammates out front. Will they come down this time around, or have they been doing some fuel saving? Only the top 9 still on the lead lap right now, Justin. If a caution comes out, it would cycle out in Kinsella's favor. He comes down onto pit road as Adam Blocker stays out for one more lap.
Blocker to the point, and now this is going to be the telling sign. As talked about, where is that interval going to be compared to Harrington? Is it going to be able to close up the gap? Keep in mind, Harrington's in a decent amount of dirty air right now, but is running 24 6s. The drivers on old tires, 25 2s.
He's been cutting through the lap traffic, unable to get on past the Alcantech NHR Esports machine, at least easily through turn 3. Across the start-finish line, Kinsella yet to roll off of his pit road. I believe Harrington is going to cycle out well in front of the Canadian. Indeed, Harrington already working his way through turn number 2, Justin, as Kinsella struggles to build up the speed on that tricky pit exit.
Yeah, a little bit of a slower exit with how daunchy it can be down there. Christopher off and away as well, though. So, in other words, Harrington's in control of his own destiny here. As long as things stay the way they are, Harrington's in a great position, especially with how he's played this race. Adam Blocker, meanwhile, was in.
So Blocker, the last one of the teammates to come in, because Tony Showen and Joe Branch also coming down on lap 119. There is Blocker into the box for the final time. We will pick up Connor Harrington as he works his way across the start-finish line. Inherits the race lead once more, the net race lead, because Samuel Ryman does owe us a pit stop as well. Harrington, though, what's the gap back to Kinsella? 4.8 seconds and climbing, Justin, as Adam Blocker builds the speed up as well.
And even with fresher tires, they don't know if it's going to be enough to close up the gap. We've seen how much Harrington was able to pull away once he got clean air, once he got a traffic friend as a buffer, essentially, or a traffic buddy, I should rather say, with how things played out, even with the traffic trying to stick around with them at the time. In other words, Harrington, despite all this traffic, is still flying through this pack as one of the quickest cars in the field.
His 4 victories before. Charlotte in Season 7. Homestead at the start of Season 8, along with that Indy GP victory. And then Motegi as well. So 4 victories so far. And he's counting the laps down before he can add to that count. 5 seconds is the gap. Jason Brophy finds himself up in 3rd, with Jason Galvin in 4th, and Adam Blocker has some work to do, Justin, if he wants to continue that podium streak.
It's not going to be easy, especially with Jason Galvin, who's quietly now put himself into a top 5 position after running the mid-pack much of this race today. And you can tell with Blocker, he's trying everything he can, trying to use the banking a bit as a ramp, in fact, to try and get himself enough of a run to build up that bottom line that he's been so good at throughout this race today.
Galvin, though, will defend this one, uses the momentum, the outside line of Fords, and holds on for now. Jason Brophy started on pit road, sits in a podium position with 12 laps to go here in Sparta, Kentucky. I talk about gladiators, Justin. That is the gladiator mindset. Never give up, fight back, and he got an early caution that very much helped him out. But now in a podium position, and all of his own doing.
Yeah, what an impressive drive for Brophy, from starting from the pit lane all the way to where he's at. It's going to be a big night overall for Private Label Team Hype, regardless of how things fare out, because they've been strong all evening. They've been top 5, much of the drivers all day. And now they're getting ready to show that performance, coming up to 10 laps to go this time by.
And I call them the Private Label Team Hype machine, Justin. That's because the gears keep on turning as, round 5 of this championship, they've already got a, give or take 100-point advantage in the team's championships. Brophy able to bounce back wonderfully in this race so far. He should reclaim advantage in those rookie championships as well. It is looking very, very good for them. Joshua Chin, despite all the drama that he's had to contend with, still might get a top 10 finish here today.
Possibly, indeed. Chin, though, needs to put a lot of effort in to get around Henry Bennett and Matt Taylor if he wants to get that job done, Chin. So, in other words, he needs to find a way to gain 1.4 seconds while down battling with the dirty air, while trying to also keep in mind, hold off Richie Hearn, who, if he ends up not gaining enough time, could end up pouncing here. By the way, second, third spot on back is still fairly contested here for these closing stages.
It's not just this. Even the gap out front is coming down. Couple of tenths every lap. 2.2 as Kinsella eats into the advantage the 44 car has. It will be 7 laps to go at the line. Almost 2 seconds. The Canadian, oh so close on a number of occasions to victory here. The all-time lap leader in 42. Took the victory back in Season 6. Wants to get back to victory lane. Only has 7 more laps to do so. Galvin all over the tail of Brophy. And Adam Blocker will try and take advantage, Justin, of any sort of mix-up here and sweep around into the podium positions.
And this is going to be where You have to wonder if the traffic is starting to really play in, as well as that difference. Thought it was going to be too much to climb, but Harrington, with the amount of thick traffic that he is in, is just right now being held up. Kinsella's reaching that same traffic. That's going to be the main difference. Is there going to be enough time for Kinsella to pass essentially 5 cars in 5 laps?
Goes to the outside, passes 1 across the start-finish line. He comes. Gap now. 1.8 second at the line. It was only a couple of hundredths between them. Harrington has cleared the majority of the dirty air. What can he do as he's reclaimed clean air out front with 5 laps to go, Justin? It's coming down to the wire. Largest margin of victory, 1.9 seconds. We might be looking like we don't break that record here today.
Yeah, the thing is, though, Kinsella lost a ton of time that lap trying to pass by the traffic, and now he's in the dirty air of all these air drivers. So that's now lost of all the time he was gaining. So Harrington utilizing the same strategy as he did before, utilizing these cars as a buffer to try and pull away.
On-board look with Harrington. He's got more dirty air to deal with. 1.8 seconds at the line, though. 3 laps to go and 4.5 miles for Harrington to hold on for his 5th Lionheart IndyCar Series victory. Brophy now has fallen out of the podium positions. The caution flag has flown. Race has ended. Connor Harrington is victor in the OMAS 200 at Kentucky because Tony Schowen, adrenaline teammate of Adam Blocker and Andrew Kinsella, has brought out the caution to close out today's race, Justin.
And unfortunately, it wasn't him as the trigger. It was Sage Karam who was the main trigger, who was slowed down the front straightaway and ended up getting into the 31 machine as that went on. What an interesting sequence.
Straight to the replay, Justin. Oh, you're right. It's Karam getting loose. Schowen goes for a ride up into the wall, and Karam as well will not finish this race. One more race will be dropped in the championship for the real-life IndyCar driver. And in his quest for an Lionheart IndyCar Championship, Justin, Sage Karam finds himself disappointed here in Sparta, Kentucky.
And that's the unfortunate thing, too, is if Karam didn't have the situation that started to break out there, he likely comes away with a solid points day, you know, top 10. But you can see, tries to run high, just about scrapes the wall, has to really get out of the gas, and as soon as he's trying to go down the straightaway, makes that contact.
Let's jump on board with the Dryer and Rybolt driver and the real world Coanda Simsport driver over on the iRacing service. You can see up into the wall. Looks for the block, and I just don't think Schowen was ready. The rear end also stepping around there to contact made. We will end this race under caution for the 2nd time in 12 months, Justin. But at the front, it will be Connor Harrington taking victory here today.
And when it comes to winning at 1.5 miles, the strategy and the luck is very critical. But you also need to have the raw pace. Connor Harrington had that tonight. Once he got up at the front, he was able to utilize that traffic very well. He was able to pull away and be the fastest car on the track. And in turn, gets him and his organization what will be a huge victory tonight.
It was adrenaline that started this race on top. Harrington had a breakout season last year, multiple victories on his quest to try and claim a championship. It was at Indy GP last time that he held off Karam, and he will take his 5th Lionheart IndyCar Series victory here at the Kentucky Speedway as we cross the line in the OMAS 200 at Kentucky for round 5 in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. Kinsella will get across the line in 2nd, with Jason Galvin back on the podium in IndyCar Series competition. 23 positions gained for the 42 car, with Jason Brophy holding on for 4th. 29 positions gained on the day. Blocker has to settle for 5th, ends his podium run, but he will still hold on to the championship lead, I do believe. Harrington in HyperX victory lane, though, will keep him honest, Justin, as we next head to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
And that's going to bring some more challenges, especially with some of the various passing zones, but also some of the hard braking zones that can send people off to the sand traps. But overall, great race today by Harrington, and a great race overall to see and watch throughout the action tonight, especially with how things played out with the strategies.
Lots of excitement, I think, for race control to work their way through as well, despite the fact that we only had 4 cautions, Justin. I'm sure there was stuff that was missed. Lots of wheel-to-wheel action, as here comes Joshua Chin to celebrate with his teammate.
Actually pushing him a little bit to give him some congratulations. How about first time in this series going to victory lane as an organization? They have a reason to be celebrating right now. Everyone that's a part of that organization, from both the open wheel and the stock car side of things, will be celebrating over in their garage area.
Are we going to get any burnouts? That's what I'm wondering here, because you deserve some burnouts after that one, Connor. It's a long, hard-fought race. 5 positions gained on the day, and into HyperX victory lane for the private label Team Hype machine. There we go. There are the donuts. He will celebrate then on the start-finish line as we take a look at our Carnox race results. It is the private label Team Hype car. The number 44 victory by 2.1 seconds in a caution-ending race, with Kinsella celebrating second, with Galvin coming across the line in third. Jason Brophy up 29 positions after starting down on pit road. He recovers for a 4th position in front of the defending series champion Adam Blocker, who has to settle for 5th on the day. Christopher in 6th, with Mike Rasmussen in 7th, with Henry Bennett pole position, finishing the race down in 8th, with Matt Taylor and Jay Brandt rounding out today's top 10. Richie Hearn in 11th, in front of Joshua Chin for the private label Team Hype. Lionel Kalisto in 13th, with Ryan Otis in 14th, along with Scott Holmes, Ken Hacker, Tyler Groff, Chris Reagan, Ron Hacker, and Brian Beard, the top 20 here today. Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Matt Houston, the final 2 cars on the lead lap, with Mike Rigney, Joe Branch, Samuel Ryman, and James Rahula all 1 lap down. Stefan Larkamp, Ricky Harding, and Adam Fraser 2 laps down, with Tony Showen getting involved in our final caution of the day, retiring with Sage Karam. Brian Greenlee recovers then to 32nd, 3 laps down as well, with Damon Martinez in 33rd. Brian Carey, hardware failure for him, drops into 34th. 3rd place in the championship coming into today's race. We'll see where he drops at the conclusion of these points. 35th to Chris Fowler, with 36th to Aaron Morgan. We'll round out our 36-car field. The fastest lap, Justin, set by Jason Galvin on 1:16. I believe that was right as we were working our way through some green flag pit stops. So Galvin finding speed using some tires.
Absolutely. In the 24 fours in particular, a blistering quick pace, and in turn was able to utilize those tires to pass by Brophy in those closing stages, Arjuna.
Well, I tell you what, let's dive straight into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. And let's go straight then down into the HyperX victory lane, where Connor Harrington is standing by with Justin Prince.
Connor, you've broken through with your organization to come away with a huge victory tonight. How does it feel to be a winner in 2021 and bring private label Team Hype to victory lane for the first time this season?
Oh my God! I mean, words can't even describe it. I'm so happy for everybody at Private Label and Ethica, Ty Stover and Tommy Milner, for putting their faith in myself and the team. I'm honored and humbled to give them the first win in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. This is always a hard league to win races in, so to get one done tonight is very special. It's probably one of the most special victories in my career.
And early on in this race, there was the difficulties with battling with the dirty air and trying to put yourself in the situation. What was kind of going through your mind in the early stages as the race developed and eventually turned right into your favor?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a power slide show up there for the first couple laps. I think like 4 or 5 of their drivers had qualified in the top 6 or 7. So it was just Chin and myself up there. We had gotten to 3rd and 4th, and we kind of just decided we were going to ride, and we took a gamble at that caution. We figured it was going to probably be the the right play. We knew track position was going to be king. And it's a lot easier to set really good lap times when you have a teammate behind you who's going to work with you instead of trying to race somebody. So that really helped us, and we had some really good in and out laps, and we were able to really pull away for that final phase of the race, and we got lucky that it stayed green. Sometimes you need a little bit of luck to win these things, but we just work really hard on putting ourselves in the right position so that when the opportunities fall to us, we can capitalize on them, and that's what we did tonight.
Going back to road course racing for the next event, Mid-Ohio, your thoughts on going left and right once more, and what's a very unique and interesting racetrack?
I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. I've never turned a racing lap on Mid-Ohio, so I'm not really sure how things will proceed. But tonight, really good to get a win. Really good for the points. Close that gap up to Blocker. We extend our lead in the team championship, so that's really good for private label team hype. Things are going really well right now. I mean, we even had a couple curveballs tonight within the team, and we were able to deal with them and put away a good points finish. So we're excited. Things are looking really good, and we're just hoping to keep building on this momentum as the season moves on.
Congratulations, a victory once again, Connor.
Yep, thank you guys very much. Thank you.
So 5th victory then for Connor Harrington in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. 3 victories last season. 2nd place at the season opener. What can he do from here to carry this momentum forward? Next up, let's bring in the power slide driver of Andrew Kinsella. Was looking strong for the Adrenaline teammates in qualifying, Andrew. Didn't necessarily work your way in the race itself, but 2nd place for you. You've won here back in Season 6. How was that out there, working your way through dirty air?
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. Quite enjoyed that race. Strategy, I think it was going to work out for us, but the lap cars just didn't fall our way. We were doing really good with Connor there after that last yellow, and then Ricky Harden came out in front of us, and it's really hard being the 3rd guy in line. So Connor was able to get a nice good gap, and then right when he was pitting, we had a bunch of cars come out in front of us. Just when we sort of needed to go, we had a whole bunch of dirty air, so that put us even further behind. But yeah, so the lap cars didn't work out, but I think overall you have to be really happy with that race. It was really fun. It was hard to pass, but at the same time, each pass felt very rewarding, and you were constantly looking for clean air, and it was basically never a dull moment in the cockpit. So it was a fun race.
If I'm doing the math correctly, Andrew, which is always a question mark late on a night here, you should be sniffing around the edge of the top 10 now in the points. It's not been the easiest start to your season by any means. What do you take from this race looking forward, heading back to the road courses next time at Mid-Ohio? What do you think your chances will be there?
Yeah, really looking forward to Mid-Ohio. I think it's going to be really, really good with this tire model. It should be very interesting. There'll be probably a fair bit of fall off. Just with how much cornering force there is there, it'll probably be an interesting split between reds and blacks. And basically, this is the first time in 5 seasons that I haven't been in the top 10 for multiple races in a row. So basically, from here on out, it's all about getting the good finishes and doing whatever I can to basically finish top 5, and if I can keep getting top 5s, I think I can still be in the championship hunt come season's end. So, gotta just get after it.
I got a question for you in terms of qualifying. What worked out so nicely in terms of getting so many of the Adrenaline cars out into the top 6? I don't need to reveal any particular secrets there, but was it a testing, figuring out what kind of in-car tools you needed to go quick, and then also just finding the right line around the track?
Yeah, line was really, really important. We did make a small tool adjustment, but it wasn't anything big. But the big thing was finding the exact right line and just finding a way to not scrub the tires through the corners. If you had any sort of scrub, you were losing hundredths of a second per corner. So if you could pull off a run without scrubbing too much, which fortunately 4 of us did up at the front. You were going to have a good starting position, and I think it benefited us throughout the race.
Well, congratulations, Andrew, on the second place. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time from Mid-Ohio for more Lionheart action.
Thanks, Arjuna.
So, the Canadian Andrew Kinsella, second place for him, but I think for the Adrenaline teammates, they would have been hoping for just a little bit more. Let's bring in our final interview of the day. Jason Galvin rocketing up 23 positions into a podium position, and Justin Prince is standing by.
And Jason, you had to claw your way and scratch your way on forward through the pack today to get yourself in this position. Talk us through your race, putting yourself in a position to run for the podium today.
Yeah, wild race. I mean, kudos to Andrew, and I think somebody might have said Henry is in it. Whoever went into building the setup for this, because, to have a race as clean as we did, and Kentucky's a tough track, and to be able to make up those spots like we did, you had to have a versatile setup, and that's what we had. I mean, I worked the bars up and down and back and forth on the weight jacker the whole race and changed my line. It's kind of exhausting. A little frustrated that I qualified so poorly. It was my first attempt at qualifying for the week, and I made a bar change at the recommendation of a teammate, and car got to turn 1 and just didn't turn. And so I think that probably cost me any chance of getting up there and racing with Connor and Adam for the win. Andrew as well, and that's where I've been the last couple years here. So ultimately, I'm just happy I got up there. I got a little lucky and caught a caution at the right time, but car was good. Thumbs up, cancer down. Global Electronic Technology car was really good, and everybody at Loud Pedal Motorsports was on their game again. We've had a really strong season so far. Not everybody's getting the results that I think that they should, but I'm happy that we keep clicking them away, because I am terrible on road courses, so I have to maximize the ovals when I can.
Now, when it comes to that final stint, by the way, you had to work your way by Jason Brophy. Talk us through that battle to be able to claw your way forward, to get in front of Blocker, get yourself in front of Brophy, to put yourself in this podium position.
Yeah, I think part of that was a little bit of luck. Part of it was I got to thank Jason, because when Adam came out of the pits there, I had a feeling we were going to get close to jumping him just because we pit so much earlier. And Jason went into 3 when Adam came out, and Adam was next to me, and Jason went to the bottom, and that took all the air away from Adam. And from there, it was just kind of I think Adam's problem was if I was high, Jason was low. If I was low, Jason was high, and Adam just kept getting arrow wash. But, I made a bar change with like 6 to go. And then because we caught some lap traffic, and I was like, well, if I could just get him to scrub a little speed somewhere, and I could get the car to rotate better, then I think I might have a shot. And that happened, and then he got arrow washed again. He just picked the wrong line, which is going to happen here in traffic. And I went to the outside, and I'm not going to lie, I didn't lift. I was in full send. Like, either we're going to get third, or we're going to have to lift to keep from hitting the wall and probably fall back to 5th or 6th. And thankfully it stuck, and then the caution came out, which I was just telling Jason I felt bad for. I think it would have been fun to race it out. He was really good too. I mean, he came from farther back than I did. He had to start from pit lane and barely stayed on the lead lap, so it's an adventurous race for him too. And just thankfully he raced me really clean. I got that run on the outside, and it would have been really easy for him to try to run me up, and he didn't. Everybody's been so clean up front this year. I mean, all the guys we raced with up front tonight, I mean, every one of them are going to win a race or already have this year. So it just goes to show you how good everybody in this league is.
Now, you mentioned there's the Gremlins that are road courses. Mid-Ohio is up next. Your thoughts on going over to that facility to try and battle said Gremlins?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Sage Karam how big of a check I need to write him to run as Jason Galvin for that race, so that I don't have to. I hate Mid-Ohio. I don't know. I understand its history and everybody loves it. I stink there. I'll be happy if we can 0 exit and roll home a top 20 and move on. There's some road courses I feel good, like I can get up there and run in the top 10 and salvage a good point stay out of. Mid-Ohio is not one of them. So my goal going into that race is to not wreck anybody else, and salvage something so we can move forward. I took what's going to end up probably being a drop at Long Beach, which annoyed me because that's probably my best road course, and the car just did something wonky and out I went. So which happened to a lot of guys at Long Beach, as you recall. So that was a little frustrating, but I mean, look, Mid-Ohio is what it is. The schedule is what it is. Everybody's got to race it, and it's my job to figure out how to maybe get a little better there over the next 2 weeks.
Thank you very much for your time, Jason.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much.
So Jason Galvin, victor a couple of weeks ago in Phoenix, follows it up with a podium here today. And championship aspirations, I think, starting to creep upwards. Justin, it's time to start thinking about saying goodbye here. But before we do so, let's take a look at our series schedule once more. 5 rounds done in our 22 race calendar, heading next to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Jason Galvin, not the biggest fan. It did sound like Andrew Kinsella and Connor Harrington might be a bit more appreciative of the left and right turns. That will be crucial, though. Then to Gateway, then to Indy for 2 back-to-back races. And the month of June, it's going to be, in effect, our month of May.
It's going to be a very busy month of June, to say the very least, especially with the Gateway providing some unique racing with both ends of the racetrack, having different types of corners and cambers to deal with and banking. The Indy GP is going to be very eventful, I think, with drivers battling in the infield of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And, of course, Indianapolis itself. It speaks for itself, the volumes where you want to win at that racetrack. You want to win, especially with it being a Triple Crown race on June the 27th. But it all starts with building momentum from Mid-Ohio coming up, especially with it being such a difficult road course to battle at.
And then into our Triple Crown as well. So lots of excitement here in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. And not just the IndyCar Series, the Retro and the Speedway competitions as well. Before we say goodbye to you, we've got some thank yous to say first. Now, lots of names that help power the Lionheart Racing Series. And let's start with the series sponsors, buttkicker. Because for sim racers, the buttkicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit has the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? Well, for more information, visit thebuttkicker.com and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders.
The SimXperience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire SimXperience ecosystem, visit www.simexperience.com.
Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz and don't forget to also use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders.
Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing Channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes, all while providing commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing Channel on YouTube and like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing Channel.
And it's not just those 5 names, but so many more. Up on your screen are the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series. To learn more about them, visit lionheartracingseries.com, where you can also find out more information on the 3 competitions that the Lionheart sanctioning body runs every single week. Lots more Lionheart competition to come, and if you want to stay involved, follow at Lionheart Series across Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, for all your social media content. ESTV has all your esports needs covered across of Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and racespottv. If you want to watch sim racing's finest duke it out night after night, follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to us as well and hit the button to get notified every single time we go live with the great sim racing series that we get to cover. It'll be a couple of weeks before we're back from the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Circuit for round 6 in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. But no fret, And next week, we've got plenty of Lionheart action to come. First on Monday, the Speedway Series heads to the short track at Phoenix, where Jason Galvin took a victory a couple of weeks ago in the IndyCars. Can he do the same in the Speedway? Well, you have to find out live on racespottv. Then on Thursday, the Lionheart Retro Series will head down under to Phillip Island as Sage Karam continues his quest to try and get a 2021 Lionheart Championship. For now, though, it's Connor Harrington in the HyperX victory lane for the 5th time in his Lionheart career as he tries to conquer the champion, that is Adam Blocker. We'll be back next week for more Lionheart action. For now, though, for the entire team at RaceSpot.tv, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. I've been joined by the one and only Justin Prince. We'll see you next week for more Lionheart competition. For now, though, it's so long and goodbye.